So I want to talk about a dry farming experiment I did with tomatoes last summer, partly intentional experiment, partly unintentional. I was wanting to try dry farming because the year before it was extremely hot and extremely dry, and we went through a long period of time where tomatoes couldn't even set fruit. And we didn't get anywhere near the amount of tomatoes that we're used to and couldn't even can tomatoes that year. So I was wanting to try some different things to make sure that we had a better tomato year last summer. And so I decided to dry farm and did a little bit of research, and it looked like the best tomatoes for dry farming are New Girls and Early Girls. And I got some Early Girl seed. I co-garden with my grandmother, who grows for some other people. And when she was giving away tomato plants, she accidentally gave away most of my Early Girls. So I did have some Early Girls that I got to experiment with, but I ended up trying Grand Marshalls. I had gotten Grand Marshall tomatoes because it said that they're able to set fruit even when it's really hot. And so I thought I would give them a try last summer. So I basically planted them as I normally would plant tomatoes, but I gave them a ton of water the day that I planted them. Way more water than I would typically give, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times the amount of water. Sorry, I don't have footage. I wasn't doing any filming back then. And then I just mulched them really well with straw, and then I never watered them again. We didn't get a lot of rain last summer, just like we hadn't the year before. So they got very little water. The interesting thing is the Early Girls did fine no matter what. You know, a lot of people have dry farmed with them and they are known for doing well. The issue with the Grand Marshalls was they did great at first. They put on tomatoes really early. They were beautiful. Everyone who came and checked out the garden were amazed at these like big and beautiful tomatoes and couldn't wait to eat them. And the issue was when we did finally get a rain, the blossom end rot was out of control. And so what I learned, I mean, besides that, I just generally probably wouldn't dry farm Grand Marshalls. I just don't think they're a great tomato for that. But if I was going to dry farm them, I learned from that experience that if I knew that it was going to rain, I would go ahead and just pick off whatever was on there at that point, and just let them ripen inside, because I would lose most, if not all of them after a rain. It kind of happened every time we got a rain. We didn't get very many rains, but when we did, they just got blossom end rot, something terrible. So I would say if you want to try Grand Marshalls, I mean, they were a good tomato in general. Now, no one said, like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing tomato I've ever had. I don't think it was anything super special, but considering the heat that a lot of us are dealing with these days, they were able to set fruit the entire time. And I had been iffy about them because we don't normally grow determinants, but they put on tomatoes throughout the summer. We were getting tomatoes from them just as long a period of time as we were getting tomatoes from our indeterminate plants. So that was a nice surprise for me. Even though they're not anything amazing in terms of flavor, I think a tomato that's not amazing is much better than no tomato at all. And because of the heat that we're having to deal with these days, it is a good tomato to have around that will set fruit throughout the summer. Besides wanting to experiment with dry farming because we had had 2 very hot and very dry summers, it just made me start worrying, is it, well, number one, is it always going to be like this? And number two, is it going to get even worse? And is there going to come a day when you just can't water everything and you kind of have to pick and choose and decide what's going to get water and what doesn't? So I thought that it would probably be good for me to start learning how to dry farm now, even if it may not be absolutely necessary now. It would probably be a good idea to figure out what works well and what doesn't, so that if a time does come when we just can't water everything because we're in such a horrible drought that I'll know which vegetables I can grow without any water at all successfully. The other reason that I wanted to try dry farming is that we don't have irrigation set up, so any watering that I have to do is by hand, which takes a long time and is boring. I have found it's a lot better with podcasts. I've learned to just put a podcast on when I'm watering, that helps me get through it. But just because I don't enjoy it, I thought, well, might as well start figuring out what I can grow without water. So that's kind of why I did that experiment with dry tomatoes. And I definitely plan to do some more dry tomatoes this summer. I'm going to do more early girls. And then I was able to get some new girl seed this year. So I'll be trying new girls as well. And I'll keep you posted on how that goes. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks.